Hello and welcome to the Nacho Show. This is Ignacio Valdez here from the beautiful Ogden, Utah. And I need to let you know that this show is being sponsored to you by Solidify Web. Let's build the website for you today. Also, we have another sponsor, which is Nacho Graphics. Nacho Graphics brings fantastic graphics to you and your company. Sorry, I kind of started there. Well, thank you so much for everybody for being here in this wonderful episode. And I want to remind you that we are living in very perilous times currently, and it is just not easy what is going on right now. And it's definitely something that it just makes me cringe and it makes me want to just kneel down and in prayer because it's definitely something that it is it's really hitting me right now. As of yesterday, we've been reading in the news that Ukraine has been invaded, and when I was scrolling down through Facebook, um, I saw several videos of cities being bombarded, and it's just not something that I mean you don't see that every day. Obviously, yeah, I mean you do see acts of violence and things like that, but what is going on right now in Russia is just uncalled for, and it is something that, gosh, it should be stopped because there's going to be a lot of people that will be suffering through war and all. Um, and I invite everybody that is hearing me or watching this show right now to be in prayer. If you are a Christian, um, I encourage you to kneel down in prayer to our Heavenly Father. And just kind of wanted to show you here something that was catching my eye, though. And yeah, it was just not. Oh my gosh. Let me go ahead and see how I can. Let me see here. Well, so okay, I'll go ahead and show you something that I came across, and I think we can see it. Let me see. Okay, right here. This is a video that I got from one of my friends that I have interviewed, and here we go. I'll just go ahead and play it. Obviously, I cannot understand what they're talking about. Obviously, I could not understand what was being said. But yeah, I'm just going to remove that. I did not understand what they were saying, but it was a huge plane flying over Ukraine, and yeah, I mean, it was a bomb. I mean, it was throwing a bomb. I would say kind of like a block away from the house that this video was being filmed. Obviously, I mean that. Gosh, yeah, that, and there was a kid crying. So that video right there really was, oh gosh, it really hit me. I mean, this is really happening, guys. Yeah, it just makes me super super sad. And yeah, I really would kneel down in prayer and definitely ask our Heavenly Father God, to bring peace to this world. In the news, we read a lot about Russia invades Ukraine. There are some live updates about this. Ukrainian forces Russian military forces and Russian-backed separatists have invaded Ukraine. President Biden warned of a catastrophic loss of life and human suffering. He's planning to make an address after meeting with G7 leaders. Russia's wide-scale invasion of Ukraine has dramatically changed the mood in Kiev as the nation woke up today with a new reality that this is at war. Ukraine's military says Russia is taking casualties in fierce fighting, but Russia's military is telling a different story. Well, I mean, what can you expect, of the Russian military? Obviously they want to they want to bring the fame for themselves, and so some supporters of Ukraine they protest a Russian the Russian war. Activists who support Ukraine are protesting at three concert series of New York City's famed Carnegie Hall this weekend, featuring Russian conductor Valery Gergiev. Um, and well, I mean, there are so many things here within the U.S. also that are protesting. Obviously, in New York there are protests. Um, so also around the world, they condemn Putin's and call for peace in Ukraine. Russia's invasion of Ukraine has sparked protests around the world, with many calling for a stop to the beginning of a new war. Just hours after the invasion began, protesters gathered outside the Russian embassy in Washington, D.C. Many people told WUSA TV that they were from Ukraine, still had family there, and wanted to see an end to the conflict that has been largely anticipated for months. Different cities throughout Ukraine are currently being bombed and people are being displaced, and it's horrible. We're here to protest to stop this war and to show the world that we're not going to stand by and do nothing. We're going to unite and we're going to call on the US government to do more and our allies to do more to stop this war. What do you guys think? Do you guys think that Joe Biden will do something about this? Do we mess with it? Do we I don't know, guys. So what do you think? Please leave your comments down below, and tell me what you think. I really would love to hear all of your thoughts about this, because I mean, what is going on right now in Ukraine is just very uncalled for. And we will go ahead and talk more briefly about that. So, the purpose also of this show is to talk more about a new bill that has been currently presented to the floor here in the state of Utah. And in order to discuss about that, we have a special guest today. Her name is Kera Birkeland. How are you, Kera?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Excellent. Thank you so much for being here in the show. And we were talking a little bit about Russia and what is going on, and with the conflict, and lots of families, men, women, and children are suffering currently right now for the bombings. And yeah, it is definitely catastrophic. And we hope and pray that things will de-escalate. So. But thank you so much, folks. Just to make you aware, Kera Birkeland, she is a current member of the House of Representatives for the state of Utah. And we would like to talk more about a bill, bill number 11. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Excellent. And this bill talks more about allowing women to stay in sports. And right now you're currently on the floor, so we will understand if you have to, go and do some voting. It is my understanding. But yeah, we will definitely be patient here with you. And
Okay, and I apologize. I'm late, and yeah,
you're fine.
my days get away from me up here. I apologize.
You're totally fine. Yeah, we are very flexible here, so no worries. Excellent. All right. Well, great. Kara, can you talk to us more about this bill that did you introduce it, or did you partner up with another member of the House to pass this?
So, yeah, I've introduced it. Senator Bramble is my sponsor on the Senate side.
Uh-huh. Great. And what does this bill entail? Can you talk to us more? Can you develop more about that?
Yes, I absolutely. Give me one quick second to
Sure.
get to a more quiet spot.
Okay, that's okay.
So the bill was designed to address the growing number of student athletes in our state
Uh-huh.
who are participating in gender. We do have a number of them. Last year there was only a handful, and none of them were going through the activity association policy to participate. This year there are 4, with another 6 to 8 who also still haven't gone through the high school policy to participate. The bill, this creates a path for kids that are transgender and want to play sports to be able to participate, but it limits it for to preserve women's sports and the safety of all the participators. And so, I get a lot of pushback of, it's interesting. A lot of people think that it goes too far and that we shouldn't have any barriers. There should be no guardrails. However, we've seen what happens in the NCAA when there are guardrails, but they don't go far enough. You have competitive swimmers out there, in the case of Leah Thomas, who just breaks records, set 6 new records for women's swim, right?
Wow.
So when you don't have good guardrails in place, there becomes a greater public outcry for full bans. But when people say that on the other end, they don't think the bill goes far enough, the problem is if you go too far, the bill then becomes litigated, and then you can't enforce any guardrails. And so you have to strike just the right balance to do what you hope to do, which is to preserve women's sports, to make sure that there's safe and fair play, but be accommodating to those kids who are struggling with their gender identity, or who do want to play, and they're sincere in their desire to compete against women as a woman, and to kind of welcome them in and let them know they have a place when it can be done in a safe and fair way.
Great. Okay, so now my question to you for that. How I understand this gender identity thing. I mean, I don't know. It doesn't fit with me, and I am not. And I'm sorry if I'm saying that. I don't know if I'm being way too harsh or anything like that. But the whole identity thing, it's just to me, it's outrageous, and it's very abnormal. Maybe, I mean, I don't know many things about it, but I don't know. I mean, if you were born with with male chromosomes, then you will still be a man, a male, or same thing with a female. Now, if a male that thinks that he's a woman then wants to play in sports and wins championships and things like that, I mean, I don't think that is fair to women. What do you think?
No, I really appreciate that question. I understand that sentiment very well from many people. To me, the reality is there are children in our state and around the nation that are intersex, and so they were born with either male biology. In many ways at birth, the doctor's like, you're identified as male at birth, but as they grow up and they develop, they start having many of the same menstrual issues that women have. It's not clear what sex they really truly were at birth. And so when we just place a full ban, we don't take those children in consideration. And to me, that's an unfortunate part of the bans. There are intersex kids who need to be able to make the best medical decisions because of their medical status, and they need to be included on the teams that are actually, just because they identified at male at birth and now they're very much in every other way a woman, those kids need to be accepted and to be able to participate, I feel. And I know some will disagree with that, but I really feel in those cases, those kids need to be able to participate in women's sports because, they don't have the same, XX or XY chromosomes that other people have. And so you can't, it's very difficult to create that hard line in the sand. I understand a desire to do that, but when we create those hard lines, what we really do is, number one, we send a message that women aren't compassionate and understanding of outside issues. And I just don't think that's true. I think women are. Number two, I think that we end up kind of biting, ourselves in the end, because, what is this saying is like, I forget, sorry, it's been such a crazy day, but essentially,
That's right.
we're trying to accomplish a goal of preserving women's sports, but we take it to such an extent that we actually can't preserve women's sports. And so are we really doing any good if all we're trying to do is preserve women's sports, and we can't do it? I don't think so. I think we really need to look at all the factors. And what we really are missing as a state is a lot of data and information on this issue. Do we have a large population of intersex kids who would participate in sports and will be, considered eligible to participate? Or are we going to see a large amount of, kids that went through male puberty and decided in junior high and high school that they want to play on the women's team, that they identify as a woman, and that's, where they want to participate. And we'll be able to make decisions based off true information and data. And I think that best policy is always going to come from that information. And as long as we move forward with faith and knowing that we're seeking good public policy, and our goal remains the same, to preserve women's sports and to protect those that are participating in athletic competition, I think we're going to have a better outcome and a better long-term plan.
I see. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it sounds super interesting about that. Now, in one of your comments that you made on a Facebook post that you did along with the video, it sounded super interesting. And you posted here, this bill does not allow any and all transgender athletes to play, only those who don't pose a safety risk and those who won't have a competitive advantage. Can you clarify a little bit more about that?
Yeah, and I apologize. I'm gonna have to go on and off camera just because I'm in and out of rooms, and it'll probably actually be more distracting as people are walking through and by. But
okay.
Yes, so because they have to go, every transgender athlete will have to go through a commission. The commission will be able to determine their eligibility through, unfortunately, let me just take this back to the NCAA. The NCAA had just a standard of, you need to have a year of hormone therapy. They didn't define what hormone therapy meant. Did it mean testosterone blockers? Did it mean estrogen if you're transitioning from male to female? What was it? It didn't matter. Just a year of hormone therapy, right? And now they're walking away from that, saying, well, maybe that wasn't the best policy. We're finding out more information. And so they're punting it off to, we're going to go with what other federations are saying based on this sport. And if there's no federation decision, we're going to go to the Olympic International Committee. But the International Olympic Committee is also saying that they're going to revise their agenda or their stance on this and policy on this after the Winter Olympics. And so what is the best policy? What is the right move forward? It certainly isn't just allowing any and all kids to participate as transgender athletes, because we've seen that the NCAA and Olympic International Committee doesn't just support that. But the commission's goal then will be to determine what is, for each individual sport and each individual athlete at that age, what is fair, what is safe. And let's say you have a 15-year-old transgender girl who wants to play basketball, and that athlete has played on the boys' team for several years prior to now. They'll take that into consideration, because when you step into the ring as someone who's participated on the boys' side and now is moving to the girls' side, as we've seen with Leah Thomas swimming in the Ivy Leagues, it makes a difference when you have already had the experience on the men's side and come to the women's side. So they'll also be able to consider the physical characteristics. Is this person who wants to play going to just tower over the typical 15-year-old girl? Is this, transgender athlete that wants to play, are they physically just twice, 3 times as large, just in bone structure? They'll take into consideration all things that makes it unfair or unsafe. The child can either come before the commission themselves with their parents, do it online, just send a parent or a doctor, anyone they feel like will help them make their best case. They can bring that individual with them before the commission, and then they can break down whatever information they are willing to give the commission. The commission will be able to use. Now, if they withhold information, the commission won't be able to make a bit more informed decision. And so ultimately they will be denied the eligibility. But ideally we'll have kids who are, confident in their position and will be able to come and speak to it. And I if I may also just add that this is not a new process, we already have panels established for eligibility within our state. There's all kinds of
Mm-hmm.
eligibility requirements and challenges that come up on a regular basis. If you're a child with an IEP, a special need, and you want a super senior and play sports your fifth year, you go before a panel to discuss whether you should
Mm-hmm.
be eligible to play for a fifth year. So the precedent has been set that we do these types of events to ensure fair and safe play in our state.
Uh-huh. So there's a comment from somebody from Facebook, and she says, "A man is a man, a woman is a woman. There are only two, and each person thinks they're. Let me see. Each person thinks whatever they want. So quit trying to make me believe anything different. You can be who you want, but stay out of men or women's sports and start your own." Well, kind of was making me think. Okay, so why couldn't there? Okay, so if we leave men's sports by themselves without anybody that's different, from that, and the women's sports as well. So why don't we just go ahead and bring in I don't know, like a transgender league or a transgender side? Does that make sense? I don't know if
Yeah.
if that makes.
Yeah, no, and that's a fair question, and one we actually over the interim I sat down and studied what the ability to do that would be. And the reality is, and I know many people will disagree with this, and yet many people will also, affirm this, a transgender woman is a woman, as they say. They're not a
Hmm.
transgender woman, they are a woman. And so when they want to play, they want to play with the women. And so if we're looking at how we allow them to play by saying, well, you're going to play on either the boys team because you identified as male at birth, or you're going to play on a trans team, that's still unconstitutional to them. And so to pass that bill would mean that we go right to litigation. And again, we have the status quo going forward while this is being litigated, because whether
Hmm.
whether people disagree or agree with them is irrelevant. The fact is that transgender athletes, transgender women, and transgender men, they see themselves as men and they see themselves as women.
Right. So now, one thing that, gosh, and I'm being very transparent with you. I mean, if they think that they are a man, but they're in reality they are not, then why do we as a government, why do we have to tailor to them?
I don't believe that we're tailoring to them. Um, we have to recognize, though, that we have a presidential administration that has said that those that are transgender, it's based upon their identity. It is not based upon anything other than how they identify. And so, under that, any kind of court ruling for us as cisgender,
Hmm.
as us as biological males or women, we can have our stance, but I
Hmm.
don't believe we have the backing in court at this time to defend our stance. The courts are currently saying that if someone believes that they are a woman and they
Hmm.
identify that way, that's good enough. You cannot then discriminate them on the basis of their sex.
Oh, okay. So they're taking in on that side of things. Okay, it kind of like, it makes me think how the satanic religion. Well, the satanics, they are registering as a religion, so they cannot be discriminated against them because now they are a religion. Does, does that make
Correct.
sense? So
Yeah, and I want to be careful not to
it.
correlate. I have several very close and dear transgender friends, and so I wouldn't want to correlate them with the satanics, but the
Well, no, no,
theory is
no.
the same.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
I'm
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
talking about that. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. It's and I could say, yeah. I mean, those individuals that are transgender and things like that. Yeah, I'm sure that they could be great people. I mean,
Right.
I'm not saying that. It's just um the fact that and this is my perspective of it, and this is how I take it, is that they made the wrong choice of being something that they're not. um and that's how I take it. And I think that we should, as a government, um, we should not allow or move the earth just for a handful of individuals that they want to be something that they're not.
Yeah.
That I'm sorry, that's how I feel about it. And maybe I don't know, maybe I need to do more research and things like that. But
Yeah, you bring
I
up
don't
a
know.
fair, and that's the all underlying issue. And that's why so many of the states that are passing the laws that I ran last year that said that you play based on your identity at birth. That's why so many of them are, if really all of them. There's one state that just enacted their policy, and there is a lawsuit
Mhm,
being built against it. But um, that's why they're all going to be litigated, right? Because you
mhm,
have two interested parties here. You have transgender athletes that feel that they're being discriminated against, and you
mm,
have women who feel like they are being discriminated against. Their opportunity to
mhm,
have a fair, competitive um, playing field is being diminished, which is what Title IX was all about. For me, and I say this with
mhm.
the utmost respect to those
Sure.
who stand firmly on the fact that this should be a ban on their participation on the women's teams altogether. I understand that desire, but in
Mhm,
standing your ground and taking that principle stand, you truly do that on the backs of all the women athletes who are playing right now and who hope to play for the next few years, because
mhm,
they will be unprotected while this is being litigated. And that's just not something that I am willing to do, because I see
mhm,
what that will do. It will harm the girls who are playing right now and not being able to provide them any kind of protection. And it'll also, I feel truly that it will harm the transgender communities. People will say that my bill's not compassionate, and they'll say some pretty vulgar and hateful
mhm,
things. The reality is, doing nothing is not compassionate for transgender people. And there are those in the transgender community who recognize that by doing nothing, we actually fan the flames of anger and intolerance towards transgenders and their athletes. And
mhm,
so it's time to take a precautionary step, I feel, in the direction of, okay, let's create the guardrails and the proper
mhm,
barriers that preserve women's sports, but ensure that we're including those who it is best for them, and because of the safety risks that they won't be imposing, because they won't be dominating or having unfair advantages because they are twice as the size of the other girls, that
mhm,
it's okay for them to participate. And I have talked to hundreds if not thousands of girls, and they have said, look, if a transgender athlete comes on to my team or I play against them and I know that they've gone through a process to where it's fair, I don't care if they play. Like, they're welcome to
hmm,
play. But the transgender community is only hurting themselves when they think that they should be able to do this unregulated. And the fact is, the NCAA, who they always hold up as this gold standard of their policy, they don't even believe that it should be done unregulated. So, what is the best
mhm.
regulation? And I think this policy, House Bill 11, will help us create the best data that will help us create the best policy for regulation on this issue.
Wow, interesting. So now that you have been working with this bill and bringing it up to light, and I'm sure it passed already, right? It is already in force.
It passed. No, so it needs to go before the Senate floor. So it passed last
Okay.
night in the Senate committee. It's passed the House both in committee and on the floor. So within the next few days, I would suspect it will come through onto the Senate floor.
So did you have a different perspective of this prior for you to formulate this bill? Did you have different feelings, or what were your thoughts, and what made you create this bill?
Well, after last year, I really tried to reflect on some of the kids that I met and spoke with, and there were some kids, again, those that are intersex, those that pose, zero threat to preserving women's sports and keeping it fair. Um,
Mhm.
I wanted them to be able to be involved when necessary. I apologize. I'm going to step on the floor and vote. One
You're
moment,
fine.
please.
That's fine.
Okay, I am back. Um,
Perfect.
so I wanted to make sure that we could include them in a way that's fair and safe. But I will just go back to this. My goal from the beginning is to preserve women's sports. And so
Mhm,
if I took another approach, an approach that couldn't be legally defended, an approach that wasn't
mhm,
compassionate, that it basically leave us with the status quo. And I can't say in good conscience that I should take a position based on principle that I
mhm.
know will leave us with status quo, which is something that I am principally against.
Hmm, I see. Okay, great. I mean, yeah, like I said, I still need to do more research about it, but I don't know. At first glance, it just makes me, I don't know. And like I said, I still need to be more involved with the LGBT community and see how they feel and how they think and things like that.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't know. At first glance, it seems to me
And I
that
hope this bill will help us.
uh
Yeah.
and yeah, I will look more. So another things that you commented in your post is that let me see, what was the okay, so the eligibility decision will be medically driven using accurate and fair science and basic biology. So
Correct.
according to the bill, so like if we have a transgender kid that wants to participate, do they have to go and send a proposal to a doctor and make create that and then turn it into the school? How does that work?
Okay, and I'm happy to answer this question. I appreciate you asking it because it's one that comes up a lot. But I do apologize. I
Mhm.
do have to get onto the House floor. We were going to be leaving the consent calendar in a
Okay,
minute, so I want to make sure I can speak
sure,
to bills after that. But
and then we
so
can wrap
yes,
up.
what? Yeah, yeah. So what happens when any student athlete, regardless of what their biology is, if they want to participate in a sport, they first must upload their birth certificate, their first time ever wanting to compete in a sport. They upload it to
Mhm,
register my athlete, then they select the sport they want to play. If the gender identity of their sport doesn't match the sport they want to play doesn't match their birth certificate, it'll trigger the commission. Now, to the physicals, every student athlete every year has to go get a basic physical that lets the activity association and the schools know that this individual is safe to play sports. It's in their best interest with their health to either play or not play. A doctor will sign off on that.
mhm,
And so that's the only physical that is part of this bill, just the one that currently exists. You have
mhm,
to have the doctor's physical, and it's the same form as it's always been. As far as the commission, they may ask questions like, "Do you know your oxygen levels? What's your saturation level? Do you know if your bone density because you've been
mhm,
perhaps taking some treatments? Is it what is that?" They can ask some questions, and the student can either provide that information or the parent or guardian, or they can say, "We don't know, we're not sure," or "We don't want to provide that information at this time." And so there's no check of the student's physical body outside
mhm,
of what their physician has to do for every student that wants to participate in athletics. And anything beyond that is truly up to the student and his or her parent or guardian to provide to the commission. The commission will then be working to create what is the baseline for a 16-year-old girl in our state. What is their typical speed which they can run? What is their typical stride? How far can they throw a ball? How high can they jump? This is information
mhm,
that a lot of people know. It's out there. As a coach, I know these things. We have
mhm.
statisticians that know a lot of these things. And so they're
Right.
going to be looking at that information and asking these athletes, okay, how fast can you run? How high can you jump? And how in depth of information can you accurately and fairly provide to us? And then they'll make
Mhm.
a decision based off of that just
Data.
factual
Mhm.
knowledge that they have. Yeah.
Right, right, right. Yeah, the definitely super interesting bill. We will go ahead and well, me myself, I will go ahead and read more about it. If there's a link or something that I could go to and then read more about it. But yeah, I understand that you have to go back to the floor and keep representing us. So we definitely appreciate you being here at the Nacho Show. We feel honored to have you here in this interview, and talking more about the HB11. And yeah, definitely we extend the greeting to you, and yeah, keep representing us at the floor.
Thank you so much. It's an honor for me to be part of your show. It's been so wonderful to know you these past about what's it been 8 years now we've known each
Eight
other.
years, yeah.
I
Yeah.
commend what you do and the
Oh,
great
thank you.
asset you are to our state. So thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, and we'll be in touch. Thank you so much, Kara. All right, guys. Well, hey, there you have it. Well, there were a couple of things right there that I really wanted to develop more as far as this interview is concerned. But yeah, what are your thoughts? Should transgender kids, and I'm saying kids, teenagers, well, number one, should they change their gender to be something they're not? Is that child abuse, for allowing your children to be something they're not? I don't know. Leave that in your comments. Thank you so much for being here today. We definitely appreciate all of you for being on my show, and we will see you next time.